I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to feel festive. So I want to give you 10 Christmas horror films that I think you need to see. What's up, everybody? Nick here at the Lost River Drive-In, and it's that time of year again. It is Christmas time. If you can't tell, I have taken myself to my family room. I normally do this in Christmas time because I like the ambiance of the decorations and whatever I got going on in the TV behind me. I think it's a little homier, a little cozier. So I hope you guys enjoy not just what I'm about to talk about, but looking at my surroundings. These are 10 horror films that are Christmas related that I think you guys have to see if you haven't already. Now, if you have followed my channel for any amount of time, you know I love a lot of these movies, or all these movies. You've heard me talk about all of them probably multiple times. But if you're new here, or if you're just now finding me, you may not have heard me talk about them. So I want to give you 10 in no particular order that I love. And starting off is one that is super underappreciated. And as my buddy Pizzow would say, it's because of the damn title, P2. Absolutely positively P2. Look, this movie is a great movie. It's more of a thriller. Wes Bentley is incredible as the delightfully deranged stalker security guard. Rachel Nichols is great in the lead role in this movie. Got a small cast, and it's kept contained to a parking garage and an office building, and I think that works to the movie's favor. It's very claustrophobic, feels very cold, very lonely. There's a lot of Christmas aesthetic going on, even music at multiple points throughout the movie, which I just love the use of, specifically Blue Christmas by Elvis. This is honestly one of my favorite Christmas horror films, and it just doesn't get talked about enough. Next up is going to be Krampus from director Michael Dougherty. Now, obviously, a lot of us horror fans knew him for Trick or Treat, which has become a seminal classic in October. But not long after, he did Krampus, which has become a seminal kind of cult classic for December. This movie is kind of what Michael does perfectly, playing with monsters and set designs and really just kind of going over the top in a lot of ways. This movie's very campy, it's funny, it's got some really good effects, practical effects at that, and it has a cool message at the end of the day. And I think that's a thing that's not talked about enough in a lot of these Christmas horror films, is like there's always this message in a lot of them that's like appreciating Christmas and, like family and loved ones. And this movie is just, ripe for the picking with that. I think that this movie just works at everything that it's trying to be, which is kind of a dark comedy, kind of also fantastical in a lot of ways. And I think that it plays on that well. I don't think you could go into this just straight horror and have it be taken super seriously. So I think that Michael Dougherty did it just enough to inject some comedy and some levity into this movie. Toni Collette's in this movie. I mean, come on. Do I even need to say any more? She's incredible. She still got snubbed for Hereditary. Never going to forget about it. Krampus is absolutely one that you've got to watch every Christmas season if you're a horror fan. Next up is going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, you could pick any movie out of this series and watch it in December. I particularly like Part 5, The Toy Maker, because of how crazy it is, but any of them will do. They're all great for this time of year. They're obviously dripping in Christmas aesthetic. They're slashers. They're from the 80s, so they have that just cheese, that it's that right amount, that campy cheese. This is so goofy at times. It's funny. It's got that charm. All of these movies do. I personally find the first movie and the fifth movie to be my favorites to watch. And to some people that might be like blasphemy. Part 3 is pretty good too. But again, you could pick any of these movies and you couldn't go wrong with The Silent Night, Deadly Night. Even the remake, which is pretty decent. And Malcolm McDowell's in it. So next up is going to be Inside. Now, I watched this movie for the first time a couple years ago, and I was kicking myself for having not watched it before. This movie rules, like, so hard. Obviously, the idea of someone wanting to steal your baby is, like, kind of a wild idea. But we're talking steal the baby before it's even out of the womb. Oh, and let's set this at Christmas time, because why not? There's a great sequence that takes place outside on the cover of a pool and then in a pool. There's just some really good stuff in here. There's some good suspense, good chase sequences, some great atmosphere, and it's just delightfully depraved, even just at its base concept. So if you haven't seen Inside, please add that to your list because this movie freaking rules. Next up is going to be the original Black Christmas. Now, there's 3 movies in this series, and they all have their own style and their own flair. They're all very different from each other. But I think that the first one is just kind of the movie for the Christmas season. I think it's probably the best Christmas horror film. This movie, even nowadays, 50 years later, going back and watching this movie, it's incredibly unsettling. Some of the stuff Billy says on the phone, some of the implements of murder are like quite depraved. It's wild to think that Bob Clark did this movie because you're like, Bob, what's going on, man? We got to see some major extremes from you on both sides of the spectrum. But Black Christmas is one of those movies that's genuinely just a seminal classic. I mean, this movie is the granddaddy of the holiday horror for a reason. It came before Halloween, and I would say that this is probably right there with Halloween in terms of holiday horror. There's probably not a better movie than these two. So I think you can't go wrong with this one. It's definitely a bit more of a slow burn, but Black Christmas, the original, is absolutely one you've got to see if you haven't already. Next up is going to be Jack Frost. And no, I'm not talking about the family-friendly Christmas hit Jack Frost. No, I'm talking about the horror movie. Now, a lot of people either get these movies confused or don't even know this one exists because of the other film. This movie is delightfully absurd, like in every sense of the word. There's no way around it. It's just insane. And the sequel, buddy. But let me tell you something. There's something about like a murderous snowman that just kind of makes me feel like it's the holiday season. And believe it or not, I was one of those people at a younger age that had no idea this movie existed and only thought of the movie with Michael Keaton. No, this is a real movie. It's a real thing. And yeah, it's really insane. So check it out if you haven't already. But you could do without the sequel. Next up is going to be The Lodge from 2019, 2020. It's right in that area somewhere. Now, this movie caught my attention because seeing the trailer for it, I noticed Jaden Martell in the movie, who played Bill Denborough in the It 2017 film and then It Chapter 2. So immediately I was like, okay, I'm interested in this. And then I never went and saw it. I watched it about a year later on streaming, and I found it to be a deeply unsettling movie, genuinely. It's like a slow burn watching the descent into madness of a person or people. And I think I love movies like that. Like, if you guys know me and a lot of my taste, I really dig those kinds of movies. Character studies, kind of descent into madness pieces. That stuff really intrigues me. The setting here is great. It obviously takes place at the holidays, but it feels like especially drab and cold. Like, there's just something about it, which I think plays to what the movie ends up being about. I think it's got some great performances. I think it's got some surprising twists here and there. Overall, I think The Lodge is a really, really solid movie that if you guys haven't seen it, because it kind of slipped under the radar, you should check it out. Next up is Better Watch Out. Now, I remember when this movie dropped on Netflix, and I remember going, hell yeah, a new Christmas horror film to watch. And I thought I knew what I was getting myself in for. I had no idea. Look, the opening of the movie, the first act, I'm kind of like, well, this is kind of what I thought I was getting, and I'm not super interested in it, but whatever, I'll give it a chance. And then when it takes the turn, I was like, holy shit, this movie is just delightfully depraved. I know I've said that a few times in this video, but it really, really is. There's some genuinely really cool death sequences. There's at least 2 nice twist surprises in the film, and I think that the way the movie ends is just like, it's messed up. Like, it's interesting, and it was begging for more. Like, I wanted to see more. I've shown this movie to people and gotten, either one of 2 reactions. Holy crap, that was stupid, or that movie is a blast. I happen to land on the side of this movie is a blast. So if you guys haven't checked out Better Watch Out yet, you need to get on that. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to go at length with this movie because everybody knows at this point that this is like one of the movies to watch this time of year, and that's Gremlins, or Gremlins 2. They're both Christmas films. They're both Christmas horror films. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. You cannot change my mind. It is what it is. Gremlins. If you haven't watched it, are you living under a rock? And finally, to round out this list, we have probably my favorite Christmas horror film of all time. It is not the greatest, but it is my favorite. Probably. And that's Black Christmas 2006. Black Xmas, whatever you want to call it. This movie freaking rules. I've never seen a Christmas horror film specifically that just feels like Christmas as much as this movie does. Almost to the point where it's over the top at times. The decor is everywhere. The snow, the music, you name it. There are kills accentuated with lights and Christmas ornamentations. I mean, it is not ornaments, like whatever, you know what I mean. It is insanely over the top. And it is a freaking blast from start to finish. At the beginning of this video, when I said that all three in this series have their own style and flair, it's very true. The first one is without a doubt the best movie of the three. It is like front to back, just a great film. Black Christmas 2006, I wouldn't go as far as to saying it's front to back a great film, because there are flaws in this movie. But it's front to back a freaking blast. A sleigh ride, if you will. I don't even know what you want to call it. This movie rules. Like, seriously rules. I always start the Christmas season watching this movie, and then I watch it again on Christmas Eve. It is the only one I watch twice, aside from Christmas Vacation, although that's not horror, and that is because this movie is too much damn fun. If you guys haven't seen this movie, or you haven't seen it in a while, please do yourselves a favor and go back and watch it. The movie freaking rules. Like, if you go into it knowing I'm getting a 2000s slasher movie, you're going to have a great time. And if you don't have a great time, you need your head checked. That's all I'm going to say. This movie freaking rules. But I want to hear down below, what are some ones that I didn't talk about? I know there's ones I didn't mention. Maybe I didn't mention them on purpose because I'm trying to do a second installment and maybe a third installment of this series. I don't know. Crazy, right? Why would I do that? I've never done that before. I do it all the time. You guys knew it was probably coming, but I want to hear your thoughts and the movies that I did not mention down below. About these movies I did mention, what do you think of these movies? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you want to revisit some of them? Comment down below. Let's discuss it all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, follow me on social media. All of my links are down below. Happy holiday season. Merry Christmas to all of you guys. We've got a month to really soak this in and live it up, so we're going to do that. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.